Back with us, a depleted Sunshine Girls team was beaten 70-45 by hosts New Zealand on Wednesday at Event Finder Stadium in Auckland in Game 1 of their two-test series. Now, the lopsided scoreline was influenced by the fact that only 7 players made the trip for the Jamaicans, who had beaten New Zealand at the recent Commonwealth Games. 12 players were initially set to travel from Kingston, but 5 were left at home after failing to secure the requisite visa. Efforts by Netball Jamaica to have the 5 take another route down under proved futile. Ahead of today's game, Sunshine Girls head coach Connie Francis had said this to the Jamaica Observer. "We can't do anything about what has been happening. I know Netball Jamaica was working on getting those 5 girls in, but it is what it is. We just have to move forward, and we are happy that the series is not totally gone." She continued, "I am disappointed for the 5 players who weren't able to journey here with us, because this certainly would have helped their growth and development playing against the number 2 ranked team in the world, and they were really looking forward to being here. But again, we just have to be positive and to try and move away from it." Now, the teams are batting for the Taini Jamison Trophy and were set to play 3 matches, but given the difficulties faced by the Jamaicans, who are short-staffed, the series will consist of only 2 games. The teams are using the games to prepare for the Netball World Cup to be played in Cape Town, South Africa next year. So, Lance, we were originally set to speak with the president of Netball Jamaica, Tricia Robinson, but she called late to say that she had an engagement which would cause her to not be here, so we have to soldier on. But yeah, it's disappointment for these Sunshine Girls. It was a packed arena, and the fans were not given full value because they didn't see a full-strength Sunshine Girls team. And more importantly, from the Jamaican perspective, the coaches didn't get to see how the squad acted in the situation. Not quite what was planned in terms of a dress rehearsal for the World Cup next year.
Yeah, and it was never going to be a full-strength Jamaica team anyway, George, because, you know, a lot of the key players in the team, including the captain, Janelle Fowler, was not going to make the trip. But the 5 players who were scheduled to make the trip were considered by Coach Connie Francis as developmental players who would have benefited immensely from the opportunity to play against world number 2 New Zealand, and that is hugely disappointing. I do suspect that Jamaica would not have sent a full-strength team there anyway, George, because for the World Cup next year, you don't want the New Zealanders to get the feel of a full-strength Jamaica team and practice and strategize against them. So the fact that it was never going to be a full-strength Jamaica team, I think, was partially a good thing. But the circumstances under which only 7 players arrived in New Zealand, very, very disappointing. This summer we did remember the Athletic Association in Jamaica having similar difficulties with the athletes arriving in Eugene, Oregon for the World Championship. So this is very disappointing, and it speaks to the administration probably having to be a little bit more proactive in the future to ensure that they, you know, dot all the I's and cross the T's in ensuring that, you know, the selected personnel get to travel for these assignments.
You know, I have personal experience of preparing to travel for competition and a visa issue. It may have been in 2003, Lance. I was going to the Caribbean Intercol debates in the USVI, and based on the plans, I was to go to get the visa to travel today, to travel in 2 days' time. So when it was declined, there was not enough time to turn around. Luckily, our university president, he had good contacts, so he was able to make some calls, and I was able to go out after everybody else had gone. So I know how it must feel to prepare to travel and not travel. The thing I'd say is this: it's always easy in these situations for people to criticize the embassy, as they did in the summer with the example you referenced of the track and field authorities in Jamaica and athletes not being able to travel to Eugene, Oregon in time for the World Championships, and the U.S. Embassy in Kingston came under heavy criticism for not giving people visas to go. That's not how it works, yeah? And, you know, you'll always get and attract a large audience if you cuss the government in Jamaica, you cuss the U.S. Embassy, you cuss the JFF. But if you try to reason things out, then people automatically dismiss what you have to say. But, you know, the truth can only be spoken by those who are brave enough to speak it. The fact is, Lance, these things you have to organize yourselves in such a way to allow for anything other than a favorable result, and then you can appeal on the back end Yeah, because if you give yourself enough time, maybe we wouldn't be here talking about the full complement of Sunshine Girls not traveling. But because the window was so tight, and by the time the declined message had been transmitted, that there was not enough time to get the house in order, or to plot an alternative route outside of the USA to New Zealand. So these things have to be planned with time, and nobody can say, oh, well, you can't plan these things with time. Of course, you're not going to do emergency surgery where you need to travel in 2 days or tomorrow. So you run to the embassy now, and so there's no other way. These things are planned beforehand. So it behoves the authorities, especially in these times with so much pressure on the consular offices and visa departments at embassies to process these documents, to go in time and give yourself room just in case your people don't get granted those travel authorizations, that you can appeal and rescue the situation.
Yeah, I gather that Netball Jamaica would counter to suggest that the initial squad earmarked for this trip would have been adjusted because of the players who are unavailable. So it does appear to me as if some of the players who were eventually put on the squad weren't always going to be on the squad. So I'm not sure.
But that's not an embassy problem.
No, it isn't.
It isn't an embassy problem.
Isn't, yeah? So I'm not sure if that was part of the complication for the Netball Jamaica administration. Having said that, it was embarrassing. I don't think there is any other way to look at it, that a Jamaica Sunshine Girls team ranked number 3 in the world are in New Zealand for a very serious 3-test series, which turned out to be a 2-test series because of the travel problems for Jamaica, and they only have 7 players. In fact, I gather that the match was only considered endorsed as a genuine test fixture because they had 3 substitutes on the bench in Carla Borrego, who is a retired Jamaica international who played at the 2003 World Cup, who lives in Australia. She had played in the ANZ Championship and the Super Netball League as well. And Romelda Aiken, who is married and had a baby about 6 weeks ago. And I gather that she flew across from Australia to New Zealand and went straight to the venue. And the coach, the 54-year-old Connie Francis, was on the bench as player coach. So it's not a good look. It's not a good look from an organizational standpoint. But I guess they are there already, and they're trying to make the best of a bad situation. They lost the opener by 25 goals. Hoping, expecting that in the Thursday morning fixture, which will be live on SportsMax at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock Jamaica Eastern Caribbean time, that they can make a better fist of it.
Well, I expect a similar result. I think their best chance to lose respectively would have been in the first game. I don't think the second game when they
But by the way, all 3 that I mentioned, Connie Francis, Carla Borrego and Romela Aiken did not play.
They were ran with the whole 7, right? Yeah, just as placeholders.
Yes.
Like when you're in school and you're counting 15, so you say 5, 6, 7, 8, right? They're placeholders. Here's the thing, though. Again, on the visa issue.
Yes.
People say that, look, how can they be denied visas when the embassy can prove that they are going to travel to represent the country? But that's not how it works. Not because you can. That's just one criterion that has been satisfied.
Yes.
So it is that these things are tricky. Nobody. Look, you can go there with a perfectly good visa that you've been traveling on for years.
Yes.
And on the day in question, you either don't represent yourself correctly.
Yes.
Somebody on the other side of the glass has a bad morning or whatever, and I'm not saying that influences decisions, but you never know. And you get turned back. So these things can happen. People should not proceed to these offices thinking that, all right, so I'm representing Jamaica in Chinese skip.
Foregone conclusion.
Yeah, so I will. No, that's not how it works. And then no, on the back end, the criticism and the cussing and everything. No, so I'm saying organizationally, Netball Jamaica sold itself short.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, well, that's our segment. As I said, the second match of the test series will be played on Thursday morning Caribbean time, 2 o'clock Jamaica time, 3 o'clock Eastern Caribbean, and it will be live on SportsMax. So you can make sure you set your alarms and get yourself up early to watch Jamaica against New Zealand in the second test. Being played in Auckland, it's world number 2 against world number 3. The Jamaica team short-handed, but trying to make a better fight of the second test, having lost the first one 72-45. We go to break. Still a lot more to come on the SportsMax Zone.